a lot of people just assume those guys who say I'm pro-life, vote for me, are trying to abolish abortion. Behind the scenes, don't you dare let that bill to abolish abortion as murder land on my desk. Abortion. It's like this constant mass murder of the most innocent people on the planet. But all that murder happens because all of these Christians actually don't love their neighbors as themselves. They love themselves supremely. We all need to do things that we're going to lose our jobs for, things that we're going to get persecuted for. There's no real persecution going on because there's not a lot of really salty, bright Christianity going on. And they won't stand up for innocent preborn human beings that are being butchered. They're not really going to stand up for anything. If you could get 100,000 people to go do the work of an abolitionist, the world starts to change.
Welcome back to the Defenders and Disciples podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by T. Russell Hunter from Abolitionist Rising. Russell holds a BA in philosophy and a master's in history of science from the University of Oklahoma. During his pursuit of a doctorate degree, Russell stumbled across the historical significance of the abolition movement, specifically how it intersects with Darwinism during the 19th century. Since then, Russell has sparked the resurgence of the abolition movement as it pertains to the current crisis of abortion. Russell is much more than a student of these topics. He actively lives out his convictions, often at great personal cost and sacrifice. He subscribes to the principle that moral opinions must not remain opinions, but also must drive us to action. And for the last 13 years, Russell has been a key player in the abortion abolitionist movement. His work at Free the States and as the first abortion abolitionist lobbyist had a huge impact by raising awareness and helping in the proliferation of abolitionist bills in states across the U.S. Russell has recently turned his attention to Abolitionist Rising, which is a nonprofit organization that seeks to advance the message of abolition through cultural engagement and the equipping of other abolition organizations, churches, and individuals. During our conversation, Russell explained the difference between the pro-life movement and the abolitionist movement, the equivocating tactics used by supposed pro-life politicians to avoid abolishing abortion, how you can get involved in the fight to abolish abortion, and so much more. And now I give you T. Russell Hunter. Hey Russell, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, sir?
Excellent, and happy to be here.
So can you share a cool or interesting God story that happened to you or someone else that just like a really amazing situation where you're like, wow, that was definitely God at work there?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is like when I saw that question in the email, I'm like, yeah, there's this range of like these stories that like you tell them and people are like, nah, that's not true, and those are really impactful, you know. But sometimes they're personal and people wouldn't believe them. But the one that came to my mind so quickly when I looked at this, and it's not something I haven't thought about in a long time, but just the question, cool God story, popped into my brain, a memory of my sophomore year living in the dorms at the college where I go most frequently to minister or to just engage people about abortion and all that. I was out there just the other day and I met some guys and I was like, yeah, I used to live. They're always like, you don't belong here. Go home, you know, get off of our college campus. Like I'm traveling around. I'm like, well, you want me to go home? Because I live like half a mile that way. You know, you want me to get out of Norman. They're like, well, this isn't your college campus. And I'm always like, well, I went to this college for like 10 years. How long have you been here? You know, but, and they're like, shut up, you know, and they just think I'm just lying. I'm like, yeah, I lived on Walker 11. And I hadn't thought about it till just the other day. And then it was the same time I looked at your prompt and I was reminded that I had a roommate in college my sophomore year that I just had put in my room. He was just put in my room. And it was about the time that I was getting really serious about following Christ and was getting really into apologetics. And I was just kind of like that caged age Christian where it's like, I want to like find an atheist and debate him. Yeah. And I'm like moving into this dorm and I'm like, who's going to be assigned? And like in walks this Marilyn Manson looking dude with the tats and stuff all over his face. And he walks in and he's like as evangelical atheist as I am evangelical Christian.
Oh my gosh.
And he walks in and I'm just like, wow, thank you, Lord. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And of course, I drove him nuts for like the first semester of the school, the first semester, and it was so awesome to be reminded of this the other day because this young man, I just was just debating him all the time about everything and anything. He's doing atheist apologetics and I'm doing Christian apologetics, and we're just going back and forth about everything, and it got to the point where I basically went. There's a philosopher theologian named Francis Schaeffer who said, who kind of said you can boil people down to like it's following Christ or suicide. He says, but this is a really dangerous thing to tell these people because they're lost and they don't have any hope, and you don't want to drive anyone to suicide. Mm-hmm. And but anyway, before I got to that part of the book, I just read the philosophical part, and this young man, his name is Scott, and he was debating me like the day before we left for Christmas break, and we just debated all night long. And I basically told him that I was like, it's either following like your worldview, your reason. You're just shifting sand. You have no foundation for anything. You believed you're just stardust and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I pushed him to that point of suicide or Christ. And he actually went home over Christmas break and got himself drunk silly, got into a bed, got a firearm. He was already drunk, probably taking pills, and sat there, almost killed himself, but then like remembered Christ or suicide, and he chose Christ. And he came back after Christmas, and he was like, kind of, because he moved out. He moved out of the dorm room. Okay. And he moves out. He hates me, and he's mad. He goes home, and he does this, and he comes back, and he's like, hey, man, I moved out of the room. I can't move back into the room, but I'm following Christ now. And I was just like, wow. So all I had to do was like push this guy to suicide. To the limit. Like, and so it was like all this work and all this, and the reason I think it was such a cool thing that I was reminded of the other day is that all this work and all this pushing that I did, really it all got down to, he had to be sitting there in that room. I'm not there. Mm-hmm. I'm not arguing. And he told me it wasn't your arguments. He's like, because I was kind of a young, prideful man. He's like, it wasn't your arguments. I was just laying in the bed, and I was either going to kill myself or follow Christ, and Christ did something. And I was like, well, praise God, And so the other day, when I looked up at that room the other day, I was like, yeah, that was such a cool thing that God did, and that was like very early on. That was like one of the first people that I saw come to Christ. So
that is an amazing story.
Yeah, wow. It was a fun time, And so I hope he's doing well. I hope he watches your channel and he sees this. Yeah, because I think he's moved off. He lives somewhere else now.
Was that the same university where they were trying to move you like 15 feet to the free speech place?
Yeah, to move me from the free speech zone that is America to the free speech zone. No, that was like in Wichita. That was in Kansas. The great liberal bastion of Kansas. That's where that was. But no, University of Oklahoma. Like most of the videos that we do. Are either at the University of Oklahoma or Oklahoma State University. But yeah, we do it so frequently that they don't even try to move us. They're just kind of like, oh, these people know the law, know they're allowed to do what they're doing. We could call the cops, but the cops just come out here and say, no, they're within their rights. And actually the cops in Norman are kind of like, we know these people are peaceful and all you're going to do is lie about them.
I'm sure they also agree with a lot of your message too.
Yeah, sometimes they're like, I can't. But then you'll get a cop that's like, I'm on your side. Yeah. And you're like, oh, good. Occasionally get a bad cop, but
Well, speaking of free speech and things like that, it kind of rolls into the next icebreaker question. What do you think is the biggest threat to our nation? If you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to use deadly force to defend yourself or to defend someone else, then you're going to want a good legal team defending you after the fact. And that's why I trust Attorneys on Retainer. And if you want to see how AOR compares to those other CCW insurance providers, then scan this QR code or check out my affiliate link in the description. They have individual and family plans so that you will be legally protected should you ever need to protect your life or someone else's life. And don't forget to use promo code DAD to save $25 on your initial sign up.
Ooh, yeah, that's like the best question on this whole list. That's like for you, that's an icebreaker question, but that's like a supremely
I know
important
that could
question.
go into like a 3 hour conversation.
Yeah,
I've considered like removing that one and like putting
Yeah.
it just in like the core questions that like
Yeah.
anyone who comes on, like I'm going to ask them that. And I might actually do that now that you say that, because like
Yeah.
it's like the third time I think I've asked that, and it does get into just like, I mean, I'm thinking this could just keep going and going and going. This could be a whole episode. So maybe I should do that.
This episode on the greatest threat to our nation. No, but the reason it's such a good question, and just connect it also to Francis Schaeffer, which I'll just say, because we're probably not going to talk too much about me and stuff, but like I was reading a ton of Francis Schaeffer when I first started following Christ. I was reading tons of C.S. Lewis and Francis Schaeffer. Just those were the books that someone said, hey, read these. And I was okay.
Yeah.
And Schaeffer had always answered that question with kind of a combination of like materialism but personal peace and affluence, like the desire for personal peace and affluence. And so I think that that's basically true, but I kind of want to boil it down and make it simple. It's like self-love and the kind of apathy that comes from that. Like the sort of personal peace, comfort, and desire, like just to not be bothered, to not help anyone, just help yourself. It's just about you and, protecting yourself. You don't care what other people do, or you may care about what people do, but if it's at all difficult, you're not going to do anything. Or if you're going to be laughed at, like people don't want to be laughed at. So there's just like, I think, an extreme apathy, because when you look at abortion, when you look at that, it's like this constant mass murder of the most innocent, helpless, precious people on the planet. And you're like, how does this sort of thing go on 75 million times in the midst of 100 million professing Christians? Like, how does that happen? It's not because 100 million professing Christians don't believe they're human, or don't believe they're made in the image of God, or don't believe they're neighbors. Like, they may believe that abortion's bad and all that, but all that murder happens because all of these Christians actually don't love their neighbors as themselves. They love themselves supremely.
Yeah.
To the point where they don't even care about their neighbors. And so I think at the root of all these great evils and even just bad ideas, this is like the apathy of good people, just the apathy of people who know better. Like, oh, I know the truth, but I'm not going to stand up and do anything about it because I might get hurt, or I might get
lose
laughed
my
at.
job.
Might lose my job. And it's gotten so bad that, we all need to do things that we're going to lose our jobs for. We all need to do things that we're going to get persecuted for. Yeah. Like there's no real persecution going on because there's not a lot of really salty, bright Christianity going on. So,
well,
but, I think that's a threat.
If someone's not willing to put themselves out there when the consequence is low, and when I say low, I mean low, like losing your job, I would, in the grand scheme of things, that is a very low consequence when you take into consideration the 20th century.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
So when you're not willing to lose your job over something principled as that, then you're definitely not going to be willing to stand up when they're taking people off to the gulags.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you watch like these movies that kind of reenact that stuff, and like I can't think of a movie offhand, but sort of like a Schindler's List type movie or something where there's like a character who is. The Nazis show up and they're just like immediately the Jews are over there. It's like that was really rough and tough. That was a tough time. Yeah. There were people doing the things that like we do, like passing out pamphlets. They were like going into college campuses and like tossing pamphlets off of stairwells and like trying to run away, and they got their heads chopped off. Well, today you can go on any college campus and pass out pamphlets, and they may bully you or push you off or arrest you or detain you, maybe do all this stuff.
You're going to get is a vituperative attack from a blue-haired liberal.
Yeah, you're going to get punched by some fairy, and you're going to be like, "Oh, this is the perfect time to turn the other cheek because that's not going to hurt either." But like, I mean, I don't want to. There can be things that happen to you, but by and large, the level of persecution that we face is so light. And I think most people just don't want to be snickered at or looked down on, and that's all. Like they're not going to stand up for anything. I mean, they won't stand up for innocent preborn human beings that are being butchered. They're not really going to stand up for anything. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah.
But also with it, I would like to say that the greatest theological answer to that question is God. God's the greatest threat to our nation, because he probably looks down at a nation. He's like, oh, I've wiped way less worse nations off the face of this earth for doing stuff that, like, and you guys got all these Christians and all these churches and all these Bibles, and you've seen all these things, and my goodness, you are Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yeah.
You know, so I think God, the things that we do and the way that we don't correct them, biggest existential threat is judgment of God.
Yeah, so. And that's a pretty big one, the biggest one.
Yeah, that's a good icebreaker too.
We'll probably roll back into that later on.
Yeah.
What books are you currently reading? Or the last one you did read? But I'm pretty sure you're currently reading books.
Yeah, I'm currently reading books. I actually read lots of history books, and so I read lots of like history books at the same time. Like, so I'm reading a ton of 19th century abolition of slavery type books. But I actually started a book the other day. I have it right here. It's from the 19th century, and it's by a guy named George Cheever. I just grabbed it because I knew that was one of your questions.
Okay.
And this I can't remember when this. It's like this guy was like one of the early abolitionists of chattel slavery. He was a pastor. I believe this is like written in like 1825.
What's the title again?
It's called Punishment by Death: A Defense of Capital Punishment. And I picked this up because he has this really excellent book just arguing for making a biblical case against the form of slavery that was being practiced in America. Okay. And he's got a book where he's talking about like biblical slavery and bad slavery and all this. And I was like, oh, this is really, he's being very careful and exact with the scripture, and where the scripture says some things that maybe we humans don't like, he just deals with it. He doesn't kind of skirt it under the rug. And so when I had finished that book, I, saw that, he's got a book on capital punishment. So I just started reading it, and about 30 pages in, it is definitely, I think, a stronger and better defense of capital punishment than you usually read today. So, I know that's kind of a can of worms. There's a lot of different thoughts on that, but 19th century, they were arguing about it then too.
Yeah.
Not all the abolitionists were on board with him on this, so he was kind of being controversial. There are a lot of pacifist abolitionists, anti-death penalty cap.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm reading a book right now called The American Story by Tim Barton, and he, in the chapter, is talking about slavery, something, maybe I did know this, but I had forgotten it because I really wasn't that interested in history when I was in school, and just more recently I've become more interested in it.
Older, you get more interested in history.
Yeah. Especially in like how it's written, and it's because it's not, obviously it's not fictional, but the way some of them can be read like almost like a story, like a fictional story, but it's nonfiction. But the talking about like the 3/5 rule, and I thought what was fascinating is how the slave states were the ones that wanted to argue for the slaves to be represented as a whole person, whereas the northern states, it was the opposite. People invert that, and it's like they wanted the representation because then the slave states would have had more representation in votes than
I know. They're like, no, these are persons.
And we'll go buy more from it and have more. Have more.
But then again, they're not like really human, that is like there's like a ton of points like that, and just anything like that, because to me, like, I'm really fixated on making sure people understand that the North and the South were alike guilty in thing, and there was a lot of apathy in the North and the South, and then there was like the few people who owned slaves. I mean, it was a lot, but it was compared to the people who didn't. But it was like, like the North like gets to look like they're the good guys, when it's like a bunch of like all talk, do nothing. We'll let slavery be abolished gradually and over time. Let's just make sure it's safe and all this kind of stuff. Meanwhile, please keep sending the cotton because all the factories are here in the North, And so like all of the big arguments that are going on between like abolitionist and anti-abolitionist like abolitionists that are getting shot and thrown in the Mississippi River. These they all happen in the North. Like people like think that it's like the North versus the South. No, it's like abolitionists in the North saying we should abolish this because God is going to judge our nation with like war or something. We better do this. They're doing that for 30 years saying that stuff. And it's actually anti-slavery moderates in the North telling the abolitionists to shut up and stop making such a big deal out of it. Stop calling it sin. Stop calling it a crime and all that kind of stuff. And God's not going to judge us. God's okay with this. God ordained this. And so that big debate that goes on, everything from that detail about, like the 3/5. But when you look at it, it's like, where are all the justices that are like upholding, the fugitive slave law? Where are they from? Well, they're from the North. They're appointed by Northerners. So reading history to correct all of the and you get lies from the right and the left.
Absolutely, yeah. That's why my that 6 lies about the AR-15 video, I do 3 lies from the left and then 3 lies from the right, and so just the comment section is just a dumpster fire of both sides coming in. And then you have the people that are like, this is so refreshing, thank you so much for calling out both sides. And it's like,
because the people who are truly fighting know that the people that are the most dangerous, where you're talking about like actually securing legit gun rights, the people who are most dangerous are the people who are the pro-gun people that are like trying to compromise and get rid of rights. And in the same thing in the abortion battle, it's not the pro-choicers that are like, we should be able to murder babies even after they're born. I mean, they're crazy and they're demonic and they're evil. Their policies look evil to everyone. It's kind of the crafty pro-life politician who's sitting there thinking, well, we can't abolish abortion because that's how I get elected. I get elected on being pro-life and I run against Democrats who are pro-choice. And if abortion is no longer on the ballot, I don't really have any other way of beating this guy. Like in Oklahoma, like everyone's 2A. And so, you got to have something to distinguish yourself. And so those people are bad.
More pernicious.
Yeah. Yep. It's William Wallace, whenever, you knock that guy off his horse and it turns out to be your buddy. It's always your buddy. That's the one who hurts you. The evil person, not so bad.
What's one piece of advice you give your younger self?
Oh man, can I just say I am still my younger self?
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you give yourself right now?
I'm not young. I'm old, getting old anyway. When I looked at that one and I was like, man, I don't know if I know how to answer that. I have to answer that on the fly. I think my younger self had a lot less maybe faith in like God was doing stuff and I didn't have to like I think myself now, I kind of don't stress. Like when I'm talking to somebody and they sort of like reject Christ or they reject my arguments or they reject me or whatever, I'm like, man, okay, I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to help you. But I don't feel like I failed because I think my current self thinks, well, God wants to save them and wants to help them and wants to do things for them, and they're rejecting God. They're not necessarily rejecting me, and it's not really because I'm not arguing right or well enough. It's that they're, being obstinate. My younger self, I think, and I mean younger like 10, 15 years ago, my college self, I think, was much more effective when I couldn't, much more effective when I couldn't persuade someone of something. Like I couldn't convince someone of something. I kind of thought, man, I must not be arguing well. My older self is a little more cynical, and it's kind of like, well, no, I'm arguing. I'm telling them the truth that they know in their heart is true, and they're rejecting it. So I don't stress myself out as much. I think when I was young, I would stress myself out. When
sometimes people just don't have ears to hear.
Yeah, it's just a true thing, and I think when you're younger, you don't know that. After many years of telling people truth that is true, and that they know is true, but they reject, you get to where you're kind of, I'm not losing sleep at night, because God wants to save them or cares about them a lot more than I do, and I'm just, bringing the message.
There's a lot of wisdom in that, putting it in God's hands and not. Obviously, you want to care, but you don't want to care to the point to where it hurts your ego.
Yeah, or where you get like a lot of things, because I mean we haven't really talked about it, but I go out and I talk to people on college campuses and that sort of thing, and a lot of the comments on our videos are kind of like, wow, you're being like really patient and you're like listening to this person and they're being really stupid or really mean and it doesn't seem to affect you. It's like, well, because I actually don't think they really dislike me all that much. I think they're just, all that anger and all that hatred is on Christ. It's on the truth. And it doesn't, I don't know what I'd tell my younger self, but my younger self, it affected him. It doesn't affect me very much. And I think it's just because maybe it's a faith thing.
Yeah.
I probably could tell all the people that are like, wow, how do you do this? They're probably all younger selves. And if they just talk to people for 10 years and try to love people, they'll probably be a little more chill.
Yeah. Let's get into it. So
now we're going to get into it. Okay.
So the company's called Abolitionists Rising, correct?
Yes.
Is it abolitionists, like plural?
Yeah, it's actually very important. Yeah, it's abolitionists because it's about it's a newer. I've been a part of other organizations, but Abolitionists Rising is the current iteration, and the reason it's called Abolitionists Rising is because it is actually kind of like a bona fide fact that at this point in time in history, there is now an abolitionist movement that is rising, growing in number, strength, influence. It's still super, super small. Like, don't get me. I'm not saying, oh, we've arrived. We've nowhere near arrived. But when you go back, 10 years, it's, I know every abolition, 10 years ago, I know all the people, essentially that are calling themselves abolitionists, believe that abortion should be abolished, not regulated, that, we should be unashamed of the gospel and not secular minded, like abolitionist tenets and principles. Yeah. I know them all. And it's like a small handful. Today, I've been places where people like evangelize me with abolition. They're like, hey, have you heard about abolition? And I'm just like, oh yeah, I've heard about it. I've been one of those where, but it's a movement that's outgrown its sort of early phase. Okay. And the reason we didn't call it Abolitionist Rising, which a lot of people are like, well, why isn't it Abolitionist Rising? It's because I really wanted to make it about the movement. And so the organization is all about furthering the ideas and encouraging people to be a part of the movement in a way that will actually have, an effect on the culture. So yes, we're an organization, but we're not the abolitionist movement. We're going to say there is an abolitionist movement. Gotcha. We're an abolitionist organization within that movement. And we're just saying, this is here. Like, I think it's here. It's arrived. It's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before so many pro-lifers who hear that there's differences become abolitionists. I mean, there will be those who don't, but
yeah, it's kind of like a church versus the church.
Right. Yeah, we're just an abolitionist organization. I'm just an abolitionist, but praise God, I'm not the only one. My 300 friends aren't the only ones. There's a lot now. So your audience may be like, well, I've never met one. I mean, we're still small. Yeah.
Well, so now they can't say that.
Yeah, so, you've met one, and he told you there's many.
Yeah. So let's get into distinguishing the difference between pro-life and abolition, and because I think colloquially most people associate anyone against abortion as just being pro-life, and right. even from like the moment you're against it to all the way to the extreme, that they just consider that to be pro-life. And for me,
right,
like I have always considered myself to be pro-life. And I don't say that in like how some people say it, like, oh, I consider myself to be pro-life, but it should be their choice. No, I'm saying it should not be a choice.
Pro-life, but this exception and this exception.
Yeah, absolutely. Like abortion is murder. Should never be a choice to murder an innocent human being. But when I say said pro-life, I mean it in the sense that I think abortion should be illegal. But can you kind of parse the difference? Because there's it's like we were talking about earlier. It's pernicious. Like some elements of pro-life are pernicious in that like they claim to be pro-life. But really what they're doing is undermining the pro-life or what most people consider like maybe a purist pro-life movement. These devices reset your trigger after each shot so that you can dry fire just like you live fire. in semi-auto. Plus, the Blackbeard fires a laser out of the bore so that you can track your shots and work on height over bore offset for close engagements. And the Blackbeard X uses an accelerometer to track and analyze the motion of your gun on their Mantis X app. Even the United States Marine Corps saw the training value in the Blackbeard X and began to utilize these devices in basic training. So now Marine Corps marksmanship coaches can analyze recruit shooting performance using the Blackbeard in order to make them better shooters. So stop wasting time with traditional dry fire, order yourself a Blackbeard or Blackbeard X today and start training to a higher standard. That's a lot of words. Maybe you can.
Those are good words. I like the word pernicious. There actually are some pro-lifers who are not pernicious, but they are inadvertently undermining the abolitionist movement. But like lots of normal pro-life people, like they call themselves pro-life, they think they're pro-life, and they run into an abolitionist who says, "I believe abortion is murder and should be criminalized as murder. It should be totally abolished. There should be no exceptions. We should treat it just like murdering a toddler. You should 100%. Treat it just like murdering anyone." A lot of people are like, that's what I believe. I'm a pro-lifer. Well, the problem is that if you look at all the pro-life organizations, you look at the pro-life movement, like the pro-life industry, they actually are and have been over the past 10 years unabashedly opposing bills put forward to abolish abortion. So bills have been put forward in, Oklahoma, Texas, I think this 15 to 20 states have had bills where it's saying like abortion, like you go into the murder code and say that place in the murder code where it says you're not allowed to kill people unless a legal abortion, let's remove that part from the homicide code and just have abortion be abolished and criminalized, prosecuted, like establish justice for preborn children. So the same.
I'm sorry to do this real quick, but let's push pause from it. You just said that in the criminal code, and I didn't know this, that it says like murder is illegal, and then they add like a little exception there. That way should tell people that like, abortion is, they wouldn't have to put the exception.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because that's where you first put it back in the 50s or like you had like, so laws in the United States, all these different states had all these different laws. And they were dealing with like abortion as like unlawful and you can't do it. And where would you put that? Well, it's in the murder statutes. And so whenever you start changing things, you're like, well, we have to modify that. And so you have to change it. You have to flip it around. And so you end up getting, and also you define murder. Like you define murder in your state code. What is murder? Well, it's the intentional destruction of a human with malice aforethought. So like you intend, there's a human there, you intend, you choose, you're sane, of sound mind, and you terminate them.
It's very simple, yeah.
But that's literally what you do with abortion. Like
exactly.
You not to be crass, you pee on a stick, it says you're pregnant, you don't want to be with child, it's telling you you're with child. So you make a choice, you're pro-choice, you make a choice to no longer be with child, to terminate that child. And you can call it terminating a pregnancy, but you're terminating that human. That's the way you're ending that pregnancy. And
they also called it exterminating in the 20th century just to make it sound more euphemistic.
Yeah. I mean, let's just say final solution. That'll make it better.
Exactly.
So
anyway, I to derail you on that, but I want to focus in on that where some people, well, it's not, it's like the criminal code even has to carve out an exception because without that exception, it meets the definition of murder. Like words have meaning.
And that is what abolition bills. So like in Oklahoma, the bill that you just have to write and put forward is just to go into the murder code and remove this allowance for abortion. And once you do that, there's no abortion is no longer lawful and it becomes criminal like it was back in the 50s or whenever they had that law. You may need to beef up, like different states have different laws. Like it may be like, some kind of like felony misdemeanor and it needs to be homicide. So there are things that need to be changed. But to get back to the big broad question, so an abolitionist, we actually unabashedly believe abortion is murder, which I think pro-lifers agree with. But when we call it murder, we say it should be treated like murder. Yeah. And that's where all of a sudden there's more differences, but this is the main difference, the hang up between like a pro-life industry group like Students for Life of America or Live Action or national right to life or created equal, all these groups, where it starts to become a debate is that the abolitionist says it should be treated like murder. Well, how is murder treated? What are the laws in your state that protect you as a 35-year-old? Like, what are they? Like,
laws it's illegal to assault someone. It's illegal to murder someone.
Like in the state of Oklahoma, if someone murders me, they will, and they're caught and they're put on trial and they're found to be guilty, they can life in prison or even the chair.
There is a penalty.
There's a penalty, and you are punished for doing it.
Yeah.
Now, whenever the abolitionist bill, passed through committee in Louisiana and ended up on the floor, what happened whenever all of a sudden the pro-life movement's like, wait, what's going on? You have a bill to criminalize abortion, which means prosecute whoever is the principal agent. So oftentimes it's the mother. If the mother is choosing abortion, she is guilty of the malice aforethought, intentional destruction. Mm-hmm. Now, it could be the father, right? It could be the mother and the father together. It could be all this stuff. But who is the abortionist? Well, abortionists don't go out into the culture looking for babies to kill. They're brought those babies to kill. Pills don't take themselves. Mm-hmm. They don't come to your house and jump in your mouth. You get on a website and you order them, and you have to take them within the first 12 weeks. So the person who's actually doing the murder is the murderer, and they have to be tried as a murderer. Now, the pro-life movement, after 50 years of fighting abortion and trying to be super PC and trying to be compassionate and not look crazy, and all, they don't want to look all these things, basically has built up this idea that women are victims of abortion. Mm-hmm. And there's a sense in which that's true, in the same way that you could say a pedophile is a victim of pedophilia. Mm-hmm. But does that mean that we don't punish pedophiles? But so the pro-life movement builds up this second victim narrative, and then to look compassionate before the culture, they say no mother should ever be punished by abortion. Abortion is already punishing her. She's a victim. Let's go after the abortionist. Only go after the abortionist. So they want to protect babies without establishing justice. Mm-hmm. So they want to say, we're trying to treat preborn human beings the same as postborn human beings, but they're not. You murder a postborn human being, you get punished. Like a mother who puts her kids in the car and drives the car into the river is guilty of homicide, and she has to be tried. Was this murder?
Regardless of what psychological effects that may cause on her, right? It's you may deal with this because you did this whenever you come to, but we're still going to punish you for it.
Yeah.
Something I just thought of when you were talking about the pill, I've never thought of this before, but currently, if a woman's pregnant and let's say that her husband doesn't want her to have the kid and gives her a pill, an abortion pill, would he be charged with murder?
Yep. Most of he's because
sounds like a pretty good comparison.
Yeah. So he's the one, his intention, because what it is it's all an illusion. What we have in this country is actually special murder rights from others. That's what we have. That's what Roe v. Wade is. It's just saying we are going to find in the Constitution, in the rights of privacy, special murder rights from others. Yeah. Like nobody is actually, I'm in Oklahoma. There are no freestanding abortion clinics. People abort their babies every day in Oklahoma. Like we still abort 5,000 babies a year. It's all by pills. So it's all by people ordering pills and then taking the pills. There's no abortionist involved. Some might say, "Oh, it's the manufacturer of the pills." It's kind of like, it's like going after guns, as though guns are the evil thing.
Going after the gun manufacturer or the car manufacturer when a car is using a DUI.
It's the bad person doing the bad thing with the gun that you go after. It's the person who's doing the act that is wicked. And so an abolitionist is going after the act of abortion. And so in the instance where the male or the father slips the pill and kills the baby, he's guilty of killing the baby. And why is the baby someone we'd protect? Because she wanted it. Mm-hmm. So it's like the whole illusion falls to pieces. We don't believe humans have rights. We believe wanted humans have rights.
Yeah.
like if you're wanted, if your mom wants you specifically, you have value and dignity and you should have the right to life. If your mom wants you and there's a problem with you, you should have surgery done on you while you're in the womb. If your mom wants you and you're going to be born early, you should be given care.
Yeah.
But if your mom doesn't, it's like someone can take, tons of meth and it kills their baby and they're in trouble. But if that same person who was wanted to take meth said, well, before I take this meth, I'm going to go get an abortion, they're not in trouble. It's just, there's just total insanity about it. But to get back to the difference between the pro-lifers and abolitionists, when that bill got put forward in Louisiana and was going to come up to be debated and voted on, all of the folks that passed it through committee with a hearty yes, amen, let's, abolish abortion, got letters from the pro-life movement. 72 of the leading pro-life organizations, the biggest, most funded, most connected, the pro-life movement that does the March for Life, the pro-life movement that makes all these, baby feet and does all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Those groups got together, wrote a letter saying, we do not, as a movement, and we speak for tens of millions of pro-life Americans, believe that women should ever be punished. And I'm like, well, I don't believe women should be punished. I believe whoever is guilty of murder should be punished. And if we make that our law and we say this is the law, the whole concern about, well, maybe women don't know. Like the pro-life movement has this thing where it's like women don't know what they're doing. Like they don't know where babies come from. And whenever they're choosing abortion, they may call themselves pro-choice and they may shout their abortions and not regret their abortions and take abortion pills in the Supreme Court. But they don't really know what this infantilizing of women that the pro-life movement does. Not normal pro-lifers like yourself, but like those organizations, because they're trying to like win a battle by being really clever and like worldly wise, and they don't want to look harsh. And so they look at us and they think we're being harsh when we're like, abortion is murder, should be treated like murder, and if you're guilty of it and you're found guilty, you should, and the law should say that, and people should be punished whenever they break that law. Yeah. And they're like, well, that's so harsh. And you're like, well, no, you're the ones that are like telling them that they're not murderers. We're telling them they're murderers because we also tell them, and this is another big difference between pro-lifers and abolitionists, is we're always ready to tell them there's forgiveness in Christ for murderers, but not for people who are victims of abortion. Like, you're a victim of abortion. You're not laying that sin down at the cross. So lots of differences. Like that's like where the big debate goes on. And so in every state, so like pro-life Oklahoma, majority in the Senate, like super majority in the House and the Senate, Republican pro-lifers.
Wow.
Republican governor, Republican lieutenant governor. Most of the sheriffs are Republicans. This is a majority-wise pro-life state. Well, we've been putting forward bills of abolition to abolish abortion as murder in Oklahoma since 2016. And if it were true that pro-lifers were really abolitionists, abortion would have been abolished, 10 years ago, or coming up on 10 years ago. And so the idea, I think a lot of people, and I'm glad that you're doing shows like this and, that is spreading, that abolitionism is rising. A lot of people just assume those guys who say I'm pro-life, vote for me. Yeah. Every life is sacred, are trying to abolish abortion. But if you give them super majorities and you actually have, we've always had, since 2016, we've had an abolitionist legislator who will file a bill and put it in. Well, the pro-life leader of the Senate says, do not let that bill leave the committee. We are not going to hear that bill. If that bill comes to the floor, we're not hearing it. And they will table the bill. They will vote against the bill. They've done everything to kill the bills. And that's not just Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the most pro-life state in the nation.
Huh. Okay.
Like, if the pro-lifers in Oklahoma wanted to abolish abortion, they could by the end of the week.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
They have all the votes. Oh my and they have a governor who says...
That makes it so much worse.
Yeah, it's terrible. So Kevin Stitt is our governor. He says any piece of pro-life he always says pro-life because he knows, because he ran against an abolitionist. Any piece of pro-life legislation that comes onto my desk, I will sign it. Behind the scenes, Greg Treat, pro tem of the Senate, don't you dare let that bill to abolish abortion as murder land on my desk. Because if that lands on his desk, he can't sign it because he's a pro-lifer and he doesn't want to punish the woman.
That's very Orwellian newspeak.
Oh yeah,
Be redefining what it means to be pro-life, to perniciously not pass what would fundamentally be an actual pro-life thing.
Yeah,
let's ban abortion, abolish abortion.
I think they are pro-life. They're just anti-justice.
Okay.
And so it's a full-blown rejection of biblical justice.
Yeah.
It's too harsh. And we've spent and the truth of the matter is outside of the politics on this, like 1 in 4 women, are going to have an abortion. Seek out them, like statistically, not in every state, but like when you bring in California and New York, that you get stats like that. And so many people know someone who's had an abortion, or they've helped someone have an abortion.
It's hard to think of that person as a murderer.
Yeah, it's hard to think of that person as a murderer, and it's also like you might be guilty of murder because it's not just women; it's men. Like men that are saying, like, "Honey, we really can't do this right now. We're too poor. We do It's like, we already got 2 kids and a third one. My paycheck's just not going to cover it. And so they get the abortion. Well, that man he's guilty of murder. They're practicing child sacrifice. They're killing a child so they can protect their born children. And of course, their born children are more expensive. They should kill the born children if it really was about, they're just not allowed to kill the born children because it's against the law. So
logically speaking, you're absolutely right. It's logically and morally speaking, it would
kill your teenage daughter. Someone's gonna clip that.
She already had more life than this one, so there you go. She's
This one's really the least expensive they're ever gonna be.
Yeah.
And for a while they're the most obedient. I mean, they cry, they poop on things, but they're not lying to you. I mean, so I just think a lot of the differences between abolitionists were like at the surface level, but. This is how they play out, but I think the root difference is, and I know this from both 19th century abolitionists and abolitionists today, is sort of like kind of an unabashed willingness to sort of be biblical. Like, I know that sounds a little, fundamental. It's like, no, it's like God gave us his word. He wrote all this stuff down. He says, when you deal with evil, deal with it this way. Don't compromise with evil. When Pharaoh says, well, why don't I let the men go for 3 days and come back? Or why don't I let the men go and you can even take women, but not your children? Or you can all go, but not your animals. Like, Moses is getting all these deals to get increments. And he's like, no, Pharaoh, we're leaving. Let us go. And there's a lot of instances like that in the Bible where you're either talking about like national sins and removing evils, like prophets talking about like, tearing down child sacrifice centers and altars and high places, or kings needing to get rid of pagan practices. And the Bible like is very like, you must do this totally without compromise. You don't leave a little sin around. You leave a little sin around to deal with it later. It'll always be there and always grows back. So that's like for nations and communities. And then you get to the New Testament and, Jesus is like, how can I be clear? If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. He's not wanting you to maim yourself, but he's telling you the thing you got to get rid of it. Adultery, flee, right? Stop, repent. Don't like cut down from, once a week or, to once a month.
Don't just manage your adultery.
Yeah. Just decrease incrementally your adultery until you're just taking long walks on the beach. And then when you get it down to just an emotional affair through the phone, then say, we've got to stop. No, you will keep that sin going, because if it's justified that one day of the month, it's probably justified. So if abortion is justified for this person, for this reason, it's justified. And so like the argument against abortion is always like got this compromise, and you do this compromise, or you sell out, you show partiality to human beings that, look more human than human beings that are earlier embryonic stages, or, human beings that can feel pain or that have beating hearts. You show partiality to one. And in that process, you're like breaking hundreds of biblical laws.
Yeah.
You're spitting on all the prophets who are like, no, you don't do a little evil to get good, or you don't call that, evil good. You don't fight evil, or you don't fight good with evil. And so I think the abolitionist comes into this saying, God has told us how we're supposed to deal with evils. And yes, it doesn't really match our current culture. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason that the pro-life movement hasn't been able to get rid of abortion for 50 years. It's because they've been fighting it with the worldly wisdom of man instead of the word of God. And guess what? Like, what God said isn't just like true because he said it. It's also, it works. Mm-hmm. Like, if we would do what God says, we would establish justice. But we don't. We think, oh, that won't work. The culture won't go for it. Mm-hmm. Why? Well, because the culture doesn't really believe in God.
Yep.
And that's why they're killing their babies.
Yep.
So that's the thing. Like, so the pro-lifers will have this thing like, leave God out of it. Just try to save babies. Leave God out of it. Mm-hmm. Like, we need to be secular. I was like, okay, so why are these people killing their babies? Because they're not following God.
Yeah. And without God, abortion, there's no issue.
Yeah.
There's no issue with murder. There's no issue with rape. We're just all bags of matter going about in this massive bag of matter hurtling through space. None of it matters.
Making social contracts that can change with the next, genocidal maniac. So
exactly.
So I mean, you clearly understand all this and you're like a pro-lifer. The thing is, and so just to not be offensive to viewers who are still kind of like, well, yeah, but what? I would just say, don't just listen to me. Go and actually look, or email pro-life leaders and say, so, bill to abolish abortion as murder. Do you support it or not? Mm-hmm. And you'll either get crickets or you'll get, no, we don't think that that's right. And maybe abortion is killing. You're like, wait, what'd you just do there? Like, that's what we find. You ask the leaders, like the National Right to Life leaders, they're like, abortion isn't murder. Like, that may be something you tolerate on somebody's sign, but don't call it murder in legislation. Because you call it murder in legislation, guess what that means? Criminal prosecution.
Yeah.
It's homicide. So, and I do think that all bubbles up from, I don't want to toot our horn too much, but I think the abolitionists, we're not perfect, but the abolitionist is trying to be biblical in their approach.
Well, I like that. I mean, I don't like that the phrase Christian fundamentalism now has a pejorative context. Like, that's a good thing.
Like, being fundamentally Christian is bad?
Christian is a good thing. Like, and the fact that now, even among some Christians, they think of it as like this pejorative thing, like, oh, he's a fundamentalist. It's like, yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah,
like,
I've built my house on a strong foundation of biblical Christianity. I've built my campaigns to fight evil in the world on a strong foundation. Well, you're being a fundamentalist. Thank you. Yeah. But it is like a weird thing where like sometimes you can't use things because so much pejorative, it piles up. But I don't think we should be afraid of any of those words. Least of all, just being able to boldly say, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm following Christ. And when they say, oh, you're only doing this because you're a Christian, instead of backing down and being like, no, science doesn't tell you what's right and wrong. Science is just observation, testing, hypothesis, all that kind of stuff. But like, no, I'm doing this because I follow Christ. And they say, well, that makes it invalid. I'm like, well, no, I think the reason you're doing what you're doing is because you don't follow Christ. So let's talk about Christ, shall we? Because that
is so important what you just said. Because that happens so often. I'm guilty of this too. Whenever it's like, well, let me come up with pro-life arguments that are secular. It's like, well, good luck, and it's impossible.
You're gonna need one. You're gonna need some kind of actual theological justification. Like, I mean, it ends at some point. Like, is murder, because they can't even say murdering born people. Like, why is it wrong to murder born people?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
They're made in the image of God.
They can't say it without that. Exactly. Yeah.
Theological. Like, it's not that they're alive. Like, see, pro-lifers have this fancy thing called SLED. I made you just what I'm talking about, this SLED thing? Like size,
location. Yeah. Something E and then development. Yeah.
Yeah, so all of that applies equally well to pigs. It doesn't get you, like, without
I like
humans, humans are made in the image of God. Like, you got to have that theological, because the person is like so it's like someone could show you a pig fetus at an early enough stage and be like, should you protect this person? And if you don't know embryology really well, you go, if it's a human, you should protect it. Why? Because humans are made in the image of God.
Yeah.
And if they say, oh, don't bring that theological stuff in here, and you're like, okay, well then let's just throw out all law.
Mm-hmm.
Because we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are what? Created, equal, endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights.
Yeah.
Their rights come from the Creator, from the kind of thing you are. Why doesn't the pig, which is a mammal that develops in the womb and goes through size level, like, you know, the difference between a pig fetus and a pig and a pig fetus or a pig embryo is just sled. Well, so that being said, you can use scientific knowledge and understanding and arguments like that to tell the person that you're talking to that they're lying. You know, like if they're making some kind of argument that you need a scientific fact just to correct. Like if you say life begins at conception, like if the person says, yes, human beings have rights, and you go, okay, so if human beings have rights, when does a human beings begin? Like when does a human being come into being? And they'll be like, well, not at conception. You're like, okay, so what is it scientifically? And you can make that scientifically. It is fully human, and no embryologist in the entire world worth anything. No textbook, no like that's where humans come. We are conceived. That's when we begin. It's just a synonym for begin, you know. And so
if
we
you
all
find
go.
a scientist that says something contrary to that, all that will tell you is that is not a scientist.
Yeah, it's some political. It's someone who's like using his science to say crazy stuff.
Yeah,
it's like Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about gender stuff, and you're like, no, you need to stick to stardust, or whatever, quasars. Like I watched some of his stuff the other day. I'm like, he uses the fact that he's this scientist who can use these big words and talk in a compelling way.
Yeah.
And he's got
like
that.
Bill Nye. Bill Nye has an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering.
Yeah, but I
have it, and I think that's it. I don't think you got a master's. Like that's what I have, and like pretend to be this like amazing scientist. So
you are the science guy. You should start going by that. Well, it's because he taught all these kids when they were like in school. He's pernicious because Bill Nye is like, I was teaching all these kids about like chemical reactions and ant farms and whatever stuff that he was doing.
Yeah.
And then when all those kids grow up and they're like tempted to sin and running off into darkness and all this kind of stuff, and they don't want to believe and follow God because they're worried that he's going to take their sin away from them and change them or whatever, or they judge them. They look around and they're like, oh, it's that guy who taught me about the, cell division.
Yeah.
What's he say? And lo and behold, he's wicked too. And he's professing to be wise, but he's a fool. And he tells you that, there's no God. And you're just kind of like, okay, well, and not to be mean to you and your degree, but nothing about, like he doesn't really have the authority, but he's using it.
Yes, absolutely.
But
it's the was it the lab coat syndrome? Is that what it's called? Where someone put on lab coat or appeal to authority, any of those type of fallacies.
It's a particular, it's starting to wane now. I think a lot of people are getting wise to that YouTube is, in the future history, they're like, how did all these Christians get kind of smarter and bolder? It's like, how'd all this information spread? So, and then, the poor owners of YouTube will be like, it's our fault.
Yeah.
Like it's so much good information is going out, and it's our arguments are true and founded in truth, and so they actually stand up. And the other side is just lying and trying to be real clever to justify themselves, and it just all falls apart.
Yeah. So, no, I'm glad you were able to elucidate that and like the difference between the pro-life and abolitionist movement, because I think a lot of people, me included, kind of like, what is really the difference though? But now that you say it like that, I mean that makes similar sense.
And I would challenge you to look into it. Don't just believe me. I mean, like sometimes this goes like, I sound like I have a tinfoil in my hat. I'm kind of like saying crazy things. Like a lot of people converted to abolitionism back in Oklahoma because I was like, look, we have a bill to abolish abortion, treat it as murder, get rid of it. It's filed. And then like on Facebook, this is back when Facebook was legit and relevant.
Yeah.
People watch stuff on Facebook. I get on Facebook and I'm like, hey, everybody, guess what? Tomorrow, the Southern Baptist Convention in Oklahoma, they're gonna lobby against the bill to abolish abortion. And all these like pastors and stuff are like, okay, you're a lunatic. We're Southern Baptist. We're the most pro-life, organization on the planet. What are you talking about? And I'm like, pay attention. Next day, Tulsa World opinion, president of the Oklahoma Baptist General Convention coming out against the bill to abolish abortion. And all these people are like, what? So this is a way this has to work. Someone has to say, pro-lifers believe this, abolitionists believe this. These are different. This isn't just tribal. We aren't just, trying to create a cool name for ourselves. It really is a debate. And then pay attention to what happens, and you'll see, wow, these pro-lifers are putting forward bills to like how does a pro-lifer deal with abortion pills? Well, let's put forward a bill saying we need to stop letting abortion pills go in the mail because these abortion pills end up going into the water supply and they pollute the water supply and it's bad for the environment. So that's how we need to deal with the abortion pills. And then meanwhile, there's a bill to abolish abortion because it's murder with malice aforethought. Both of these bills are filed in the state of Oklahoma. Guess which one gets heard?
The water one.
Yeah, the pills in the water. That's the story,
abortion is bad because of environmentalism. What?
Yeah, because the geniuses that are over there running the polls are like, what do people care about today? Oh, Mother Earth. Let's fight abortion by saying it's bad for Mother Earth. It's not, it's stupid, or worse, they'll think, how can we reach people? People don't like the idea of pain. So let's file a bill to abolish abortion, ban, they don't use a word because that, they know what it means, but let's ban abortion at 20 weeks when the babies feel pain, because surely we can get everybody on board for that. And so you put forward a fetal pain bill to ban abortion at 20 weeks and it passes and you celebrate it and you're like, woohoo. And some insufferable abolitionist comes along and says, you do realize that 99% of all abortions happen before 20 weeks or 98. And that you do realize that exception in your bill is like no abortions after 20 weeks, except in the case of this, and this, account for that percentage that are after 20 weeks. And you've done nothing. And they're just kind of like, well, every step counts. We want to, this is in Texas, we want to do more. We want to do more than 20 weeks. So all the votes that you used to pass a bill at 20 weeks could have been used to pass a bill to abolish it. You had all the votes. If you go through every single one of those people who voted for the fetal pain 20-week ban, say that they wanted to do more. It's just an addiction to compromise and a belief that, compromise is going to work. Now, I think biblically you can say compromise doesn't work. I think philosophically you can get there. But now for people who are totally pragmatist, you can say they've been compromising and passing incremental bills or regulatory bills for 50 freaking years.
Yeah.
80 million murdered babies. Pragmatically speaking, why are you telling me to do what works when you've got 5 decades of evidence that what you're doing doesn't work?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of this it probably hits people pretty hard and they're like, oh, is this true? I don't know what to think about it. But go look at the record. Look at it. Pay attention. Next time some big pro-life approved politician gets put on the spot about whether they believe that mothers who murder their children should be tried as murderers. And they won't. And if they won't do that, they can't abolish abortion. Yeah. Because that's the principal cause. Not just the mother, but whoever the principal agent is. If you say we're trying to ban abortion, but like in Oklahoma, we have a no abortion in Oklahoma ban, unless you're the mother taking the pill, which allows all the abortions.
Could a mother in Oklahoma, and this is like a really weird hypothetical, but could a mother in Oklahoma, if she was an abortion doctor, conduct her own abortion, and would that be okay?
Yeah, theoretically, because we have an immunity clause. The most conservative the most conservative pro-life Republican in the state of Oklahoma year after year for his entire term. He's term limit now. Senator Nathan Dahm. People love him. People don't like it that I say his name because they can't get up. In his bill that he did pass a year or two back included immunity, blanket immunity for mothers. Like, the abortionists are bad and they got to be stopped. Blanket immunity for mothers. So in a state like Oklahoma where abortion is banned, you could literally take up, and these are not pills that just like, they're not morning after pills. These are pills that you can murder a baby at 12 weeks. You know, a baby that looks, you know, sorry, this is a bad drawing.
I didn't even know they had pills that did that.
Yeah. So like little, you know, the paradigmatic ultrasound baby, you know, the one that looks, the one you get the end of the first trimester. Pills that are powerful enough to murder up to 12 weeks. And if you kind of miss it, they come late in the mail, you can just take double and go up to 14, 15 weeks. You could take those pills and you could walk into Governor Kevin Stitt's office and say, you know, have them in your pocket and be like, Governor, you are the most pro-life governor in the United States of America. And you were given the Life Achievement Award, and Lila Rose called you the most pro-life and all this kind of stuff. And you've banned abortion in Oklahoma. And he'd be like, well, yes, I have. You know, thank you. Give me some roses and claps. And then you could pull that pill out of your pocket and you could pop it and murder that baby right in front of him. And according to his own laws and his own philosophy, he couldn't do a darn thing about it. And she could say, I'm doing this with malice aforethought.
Wow.
Not because the baby was conceived in rape, not because the baby has Down syndrome, because I don't want the baby. And it's the pro-lifers' laws that protect her. Now, if a man came by and said, do you want to take this? And she said no, and then he forced it in it, yeah, he would have murdered that baby. So
correct me if I'm wrong, but there seems to be two, I guess, sources that would cause someone to be either pro-life, but I don't want to become an abolitionist because I'm afraid to call women, or I have some resistance to call women murderers.
I don't want to look crazy or callous or whatever.
There's that one, and then the other one could be maybe like a political, strategic thing where it's like, those are kind of basically the two ways in which someone could be like, okay.
Yeah, because I think a lot of these guys are kind of like, oh, I'm with you, but that's political suicide. You know, it's kind of like, well, I'm with you, but we can't do this. Well, you know, the reason you can't do it is because all of you are saying that you're with us, but you can't do it. Like it's all of the pro-life politics. When I say supermajority, like you do not need any of the Democrats. You don't need any of them to abolish abortion in Oklahoma. It's a super majority. The only thing keeping you from doing it is just choosing not to do it. And you say, well, why aren't you doing this? Well, because it's not feasible. It is feasible. Stop lying. Some of them you will push, and then I've pushed, we have a video up. I don't know what it's called, but we have a video up. It's from like a month ago. I'm talking to a pro-life legislator in his office, and, you know, I push him a little bit, and, you know, he's like, well, you know, what if it was your daughter? So this is like a pro-life guy who's pro-life and accepting roses on a pro-life day where they bring them roses. Yeah, you push them far enough. And I've had that happen to me multiple times where you go in, the guy's like, no, actually, I think I'm with you. I'm an abolitionist. And you're kind of like, okay, so here's a bill like it's already written. It's by an attorney. It's very sound. It's very solid. Constitutional lawyer wrote this to abolish abortion as murder. Since you're with me, you can file that and we will lobby people to support it. At that point, they're like, well, I have to read it first, you know? And then, you know, you say, okay, yeah, you have to read it, like here and show it to them or whatever. It changes the murder statute. Well, say you had a daughter, right? And she...
Get out of here. Oh my gosh.
No, yeah, I've heard that. Like crazy stuff.
What?
Like say you had a daughter and she was like with a black guy. What did you just say? And why wasn't I filming? Why wasn't I filming? Like, there's just like weird. That's the most extreme thing I've ever heard. But like, there's a sense where I think some of these are fakers and some of them are legit. And the fakers, I think, have an undue influence over the legit ones. And the legit ones think, oh, we're all pro-life. And that's why it's so important to create this third category. So so you have pro-life, you have pro-choice, and that's the only game in town. Mm-hmm. All of these vote pro-life people, there's this gamut.
Yeah.
I mean, just like this huge variety of you have to like the pro-lifers that are like they have to say like pro-life without compromise.
Yeah.
I'm a no exceptions pro-lifer. Why do you have to say that? Because there's all these people that are like personally pro-life.
This is the great.
They would never do it.
Pro-life.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, freaking Joe Biden is pro-life. Like that, like he would he doesn't think it's good, and he wouldn't do it, and he's not for it because he's Catholic and whatever.
He's not at the Peter Singer level, but
yeah, he's I'm pro-life. I'm pro-life, but it's a woman's choice. It's just like this crazy. But there's like people, and that's Biden. That's all the way there. But like you can go the other direction, and it's like they're pro-life without exception. They even think that we should protect babies conceived in rape and all that kind of stuff. But then when you get to the criminalization part, all of a sudden their Venn diagram. So here's the pro-choicer, and here's the abolitionist, and here's the question of criminalization. Well, they're with the pro-choicer. Their Venn diagram. We both, the pro-lifer and the pro-choicer, agree that the mother should never be punished. That is the principal belief of the pro-choice movement, that the mother should be able to do this with impunity. Because the pro-choice movement would actually agree that if a man forces you to get a pill, the man should be in trouble. Because they believe it's just mothers have this special murder right. And the pro-lifers, whenever this post, I will find it and I will put the link underneath it.
Yeah.
Or you can just Google it. 72 pro-life organizations oppose Bill of Abolition, and you can read the National Right to Life letter, and it's got signatures from all of the big pro-life groups.
Wow.
It's got signatures from like the head of the Southern Baptist Ethics and Religious Liberty, So I think I've beat that horse to death.
No, well, let's beat it a little bit further. The topic of like incrementalism. So the reason I was asking that a second ago was like, obviously you have the ones that are like, they, on a fundamental level, they don't want to claim that either they have been or someone else that they know is a murderer or has murdered. And then the other side,
they're not actually,
yeah. And the other side is like the real politique type. Let's do this thing in a way that's like, political capital and all that stuff. But is there ever an instance that you can think of? And I go back to like maybe like the Declaration of Independence, where I think it was, and you have your pedigree is mine pales in comparison to yours on the history level, but like when it comes to the Declaration of Independence, I think it was Jefferson who staunchly wanted to include in there to basically say that slavery was bad, and then you had like two holdout states, I think South Carolina and Georgia, that would not, the delegates would not sign, but they needed unanimous signatures in order to pass.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. Constitutional Convention is kind of like the only way we're getting this passed is if we leave slavery alone. So like literally people don't believe, a lot of people like to worship the Constitution as though it's this infallible document. Right, but slavery is defended in the United States Constitution as originally ratified in 3 very clear places. They just didn't use the word slavery. And so they were very clear and clever. And in one of the places, they're talking about when the slave trade will be abolished. They set a date. And that's in the, there were people that were like, hey, United States of America, we should actually recognize Jesus Christ as king in the Constitution and make sure that slavery is abolished. You're not invited to the convention, you're
a fundamentalist.
Yeah, you're a fundamentalist. This is not a Christian nation, and so there's a lot there. And if you're heading to the question of, okay, so to get the United States of America, which is a great experiment and is, I would say, yes, it's the greatest nation in the world and all that. Like to get there, they had to have this little compromise at the beginning. Well, the real question is did you?
If you're interested in new innovative training tools, then you have to check out Ace VR. And make sure to use promo code DEFENDERS to get 1 month free. I'll admit that when I first heard about this device, I thought it was probably a gimmick and there was no way it would feel realistic. But the moment I put on the headset and held the controller, it was obvious to me that we had stepped into a new era of firearms training. Not only does the virtual reality environment accurately represent the real world, but the pistol controller has the same weight and feel of a real gun. And the trigger feels just like an actual trigger. With Ace VR, you can play several different game modes, from drills that work on the fundamentals of marksmanship to competitive stages, and even more entertaining modes that work on situational awareness. You can also compete with friends and others in the Ace community. And don't forget to use promo code DEFENDERS to get 1 month free.
Like, you say, well, we did, and you're like, yeah. Have there been any problems that followed from that? Like, you remember that thing called the Civil freaking War? When did the Civil War start? 1850. No, it happened when they ratified the Constitution. When they compromised for those, rum and cotton empire people, they compromised there, and that sin at the root grew and grew and grew to the point where you had, brothers killing each other. Yeah. And so I think the idea that sometimes you got to do a little compromise, a little good, is a faulty idea. I think that that's one way to deal with that. The other way is like, just looking at the question, is incrementalism always bad? That is like an important question, because things happening incrementally, like if they happen in the world incrementally, like if incrementally more and more pro-lifers become abolitionists through education, learning, thinking, conviction, and over time, it goes like, say, here's the number of pro-lifers and here's the number of abolitionists. Incrementally over time, I guess at this point is when you can abolish abortion, because abolitionists outnumber pro-lifers, and they can't kill our bills anymore. We kill their bills, and we pass our bills. Well, this happens incrementally. Well, this happens through putting forward bills, calling for the total immediate abolition of abortion, and in due time, it happens incrementally. Nothing wrong with that incrementalism. That's not bad. No one should oppose that. That's how the world. Yes, sometimes there's big shifts. But if you look at the abolition of the slave trade, which was peaceful in Britain, it took 20 years of Wilberforce filing bills to abolish the slave trade. Yeah. And then after 20 years, they were able to pass it. Well, okay. Is that an argument for incrementalism? Well, let's go back and look at the bill. The first bill to abolish the slave trade was to abolish the slave trade. Right? They didn't vote for it. And what did they do instead? They voted for a bill to say slaves need more space. We're not going to abolish the slave trade. We need more space on the boats. So they passed the Dolben Act instead of the Wilberforce bill, like a regulation bill. So they regulated the trade instead of. So Wilberforce came back and filed the bill again. And instead of passing that bill, they passed some other bill. Eventually, when it started gaining a little ground and looking like a threat, files a bill to abolish the slave trade. Politician comes along and says, I agree we should abolish the slave trade, but it must be done gradually. And he sets a date. Well, time goes by, bill, never voting for it. That date comes along. Do they abolish it? No. Some other compromise. We can't abolish it then because the French would have it. We wouldn't have it. So all the incrementalist bills were being used to delay the abolition bills. But incrementally, more and more people became abolitionists. So by the time you had 1807, you have a majority of the people in Parliament are for the abolition of the slave trade. And it's inevitable at that point, because over time, incrementally, they converted to abolition. Gotcha. But the bill that's put forward that actually does it, it's not incremental. It's Britain will not be involved in the transatlantic slave trade. Yeah. Henceforth and forevermore. And it's the same thing in America. Even you add the war and all the chaos of that, the amendment isn't incremental. It's chattel slavery is abolished. Yeah. You're no longer able to, buy and sell people in the United States of America. Incrementalism, if it's understood like substitute bills to do less than abolition, are always put forward as the substitute. It's like I don't know the law of the land or the lay of the land in every state in regard to like the Second Amendment, right? But in states where you have it's a little easier to kind of compromise with. I mean, I don't want to be offensive to you, but like, you know, trying to get some gun rights. When you compromise, it's not killing people. I mean, it could be killing people like through bad self-defense things that happen through it or whatever. You know, safer world, more people carrying, right? Good people, but like you might like compromise a little bit and get to where you're going, or like you might move incrementally. But what about like in a state where you have a really solid bill, like a really good, you know, constitutional, you know, carry type bill or whatever the best version is, and someone comes along and says, well, why don't we pass this instead?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that keeps the Constitution, you know, that sort of,
yeah. I'm glad
that
you
sort of
that.
play is, that's what that's one of the reasons incrementalism is bad, because of that substitute nature. The other thing, just from a Christian perspective, and I would say a logical perspective, because you have to make sure the things that you're doing don't refute themselves, because they won't work. Like if you say something like abortion is wrong because it causes pain, and that's the increment you get, and then you're like, well, I'm going to be smash mouth and I'm going to go back and get another increment. You go back the next year and you're like, abortion is wrong because it stops a beating heart. They're like, wait a second, you said it was wrong because it's pain. Well, now you changed it.
Yeah.
So you're kind of like undermining yourself the whole time.
Goalpost.
You're moving it around, and you're not really saving anyone, but you're raising a lot of money and you're getting a lot of attaboys. But like that, so a lot of the incrementalism is smoke and mirrors. But some of the incrementalism stuff is easy if you're a Christian. Just you can say like, we can't pass that. Like if it's a bill that tries to protect all babies except for rape conceived babies, the reason you don't sort of support that bill, even though it's going to save all these lives except for 1% that are, you know, conceived in rape. It's a bill saying that you're allowed to murder children for the crimes of their fathers. And guess who hates that bill the most? God. So why in the world would this bill that God hates, that goes against his law, that like literally, like you just look at, like, I mean, the prophets and the law, like Isaiah 10:2, for anyone who wants to look at that, like, woe to those who write iniquitous decrees that make the fatherless prey. Like, who are the fatherless? The children who are conceived in rape. Like, their dads put them here on the planet with no intention to love them or help them or anything. And the mom's supposed to, in our culture, just take the baby away to be destroyed. Well, a bill that like does all this great thing, but has a line in it that says, except for in the case of rape, is a bill that says you can punish children to death for the crimes of rapists. And that bill is not going to help anyone. And lo and behold, guess what? You put that rape exception in there and anyone can get an abortion. They just got to say they've been raped. You say, well, let's make it where they have to report the rape. Okay, well, if it's okay to kill babies conceived in rape, it's probably okay to kill babies because you don't want them.
Yep.
Because humans don't have rights. Because everyone knows, like, whether you know it or not, everyone knows someone who's conceived in rape. And you can't kill them.
Yep.
But, you know, so I think
and then
sometimes
it goes back to that linchpin argument of like, well, there's a difference between an unborn and a born. It's like that is, then stop using these red herrings and start, and let's argue that, right?
Yeah.
They always go back to that. Always go back to that every single time, whether it's disabilities, rape, whatever the case may be. And
no, you're 100%. Like, I mean, you talk to enough people, there's like, I don't know, 5 to 10 things that they all say, and they just move from one. You answer it. Like, I mean, if you're just like, well, I don't know. Like, I think you had a question on one of the emails, wherever it's like,
I think it'd be a good segue into that. Like, so what are some? Let's see.
Are there any strong ones? Yeah.
Well, I think I have. So what are the most common pro-abortion arguments? You know, what's one that you noticed that stunts a lot? So whatever you want to go. However.
Yeah, I mean, there are just all these common ones that everyone hears. You know, what about the baby conceived in rape? And some people find that really hard to answer. But if you just think about it a little bit, like, you can always just say like, okay, so I don't think we should punish children to death for the sins of their parents. But you do. That's kind of barbaric. And then all of a sudden the person's like, well, you're barbaric. You're trying to make this 14-year-old girl raise this baby. And I'm like, well, no, You're trying to, instead of come around the girl and help her raise this baby and maybe help her put this baby up for adoption and protecting this baby, you're bloodthirsty for the baby. Mm-hmm. And I just always just flip it on him and say, let's kill the rapist. You know, so I'm a rapist can be tried and executed. And no one ever comes up and says, what about abortion in the case? Like, what about rape conception? We should kill those rapists. They don't. Nope. Like, you'll ask him, you'll say, hey, who do you want to kill in this? And they're always the baby. They don't even think about the rapist. It's very weird because our culture's so hell bent on, destroying preborn humans. But anyway, you're about to say something.
No, well, so I think, and also most people on that, even if they would concede that the rapist should be punished via like capital punishment or something like that, I think that's not even what's going on in abortion. It's not the government that's killing the baby. So I think even if you went a step further and said, okay, well, you think the mom should be able to viscerate the murderer, not while it's happening, but like, let's say a few weeks later, she should be able to tie him down, and then we're going to, pull out his entrails. And
because if it's okay to kill a baby conceived in rape, because and they always say this weird thing. They'll say like she has to look down and see her rapist's face.
Gosh,
as though you can see your rapist's face in the baby face. Well, there may be some resemblance, of course. Babies often look like their fathers or whatever, but like it's so cold and crazy to think a mother who looks down at a baby just sees the rapist and wants to kill him. And so, but they always say that and say like, okay, so why don't you wait to murder him then? Mm-hmm. Is it okay then? They look down, they see the baby's rape because they're born. Okay, then stop arguing that it was because of rape.
Exactly.
Because that born baby with the rapist's face, it's all of their arguments do that. Mm-hmm. They all refute themselves at some level. They all basically get really internally inconsistent, or they're usually contradicted by something else they claim. Like one of the things that I do most often with any argument is just if like someone comes and they got all these arguments or whatever, which usually it's not. It's usually just middle fingers and bad words and But if they come and they've got some arguments or whatever, and they want to do the whole argument thing, I say like, before we go into this, do you fancy yourself as someone who believes in human rights? And they all say, yeah.
Yeah.
You fancy yourself and believing that Black Lives Matter? Yeah. Why do Black Lives matter? Like lives matter? Even Black lives? Human. Okay, so, all right, so we've established that human life is valuable and should be protected. Okay, now let's argue about whatever it is you're talking about. And then you'll say, when do you draw the line on abortion? And they draw it somewhere, 20 weeks or whatever. They draw it somewhere, and it's like, okay, so what is it that makes them become human? Like, how did they become human? And what were they before? Were they some other species? Like, whatever. And then you're like, you don't believe in human rights. Just shut up. You're a liar. You're a hypocrite. Yep. You're a liar. I'm much more mean whenever I'm talking to a fellow believer about these people. When I talk to them, I'll be like, you're a hypocrite liar. Not I don't lead with that, but getting them to sort of try to be consistent with the other things that they say. Like, it's really trendy to say love your neighbor, as though that's not Jesus, but like, even people who hate Jesus are like, you got to love your neighbor. It's like, your preborn neighbor? No, let them go to the wall. It's just like, like which neighbors? The ones that are downtrodden and oppressed and being abused and hurt and just have to deal with so much persecution, like the LGBTQ F plus a million, like those people. You got to love them. They're being oppressed. And you're like, you really think that gay people or confused people are as oppressed as preborn human beings? And all of a sudden, they don't care a lick about justice or oppression or anything. They care about that sin and that wickedness, and they want to parade it like Sodom, and they're covering it up with this veneer of caring about justice and rights. Those social justice people don't care about justice at all. If they cared about justice, they'd be running around, they'd be buying my gear and going on the streets and fighting abortion.
Absolutely. So. No, yeah, it's the cognitive dissonance that they have with just, we want to protect these people in these groups, but not the person who's being dissolved or ripped apart inside of a place that they didn't choose to be there. I mean, and when you talk about abortion, or when you talk about rape too, like the child is the least innocent party. Like, this is going to sound extreme, but even the woman has some responsibility in a lot of those situations, be it she went in the wrong place at the wrong time. Exercise good situational awareness. Now, I'm not saying like that's always the case, but like,
I mean, the
baby has
I was going to say
amount of culpability.
Yeah, science and everything, just like looking at facts and so on and so forth, what's going on. A lot of these rape conceived babies, sadly, they're like date rape drugs of boyfriends who take advantage whenever she's drunk and stuff like that. And then, we conceived, we were too drunk, we didn't I was raped. Let's kill the child.
And if people don't think
they don't even think about punishing.
To redefine rape in this whole Me Too movement of like, well, if you regret it the next day, like that's rape. Like, I think that was extremely strategic because, it's obviously falls on its face to most people's logic, but nonetheless, a lot of people buy into it. And it's
you could say it on MSNBC and it'd be fine.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's like, she was raped because she regretted it the next day. So she should have an abortion. It's like,
she didn't have her full faculties in her judgment. And you're like, well, why didn't she?
Okay, well, so does a drunk driver not have his full faculties when he kills a whole family, and we should, give him some grace? It's like, no.
You got to take it into account, man. Well, let him go. Yeah. They're thinking about the whole you can't kill a newborn baby conceived in rape, because you could potentially find out that your child was, you got raped at one point in time, but you also slept with your husband. Say you're black and you got raped by a white guy, and then the baby comes out and it's clearly white, and you're like, I didn't think there was a conception there.
Still attached, kill it.
Yeah, it's like the baby comes out and you're like, it's white.
So, how often, like, in your experiences, and like when you go to college campuses or like street corners and stuff like that, or even in other settings, how often have you seen people change their minds, and what are the typical ways in which you've noticed that happens? Obviously, I mean, person has to have a heart, I'm assuming, soft enough to change their mind. But then what's your experience with that?
Yeah, well, on the question of abolition, any true, solid Christian believer that I end up talking to on a college campus, and kind of they're like, I'm pro-life, and I'm like, oh, cool. Well, then, have you considered abolition? Generally, most of them, like converting, like most of them, if they stop, they talk, they care enough to talk to the person who's like standing on the college campus with the sign, and you start making the arguments. If they stay around, like, I feel like any solid Christian who is like trying to follow Christ, trying to be fundamentally rooted in the Word of God, is a goner for abolition. So I find that that's almost near, batting 100. Now,
that's pretty inspiring to hear that.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I think that's such an important thing, because it's not really like, I'm not an abolitionist because I've weighed the arguments and I found them to be wanting. And instead, I think the best way to fight abortion is the way we've been fighting it for the past 50 years. It's very easy. So the way that generally keep an abolitionist or a pro-lifer from converting to abolition is telling them to not listen to those telling the pro-lifers not to listen to those abolitionists. Yeah. Because just don't hear the arguments. So I think a lot of minds get changed, but most of the people that we talk to and that come up to us are not even pro-life. So how often does someone who's like sort of pro-abortion change? That is very rare. It does happen. What usually happens is you get someone who is probably pro-choice culturally. Like they think they're in a college campus and that's the position they're supposed to hold, but they're not pro-choice because they've done it, like they're not guilty of it. So they can change, like they can go, oh yeah, they don't have to say, oh, I'm a murderer, I need to repent, let me place that at the foot of the cross. They don't have to do that. They just go, yeah, so I've had a number of people kind of say like, I was pro-choice, but now that you're saying it, I don't think I am. You get that kind of, and you don't know how far. Like they just didn't have any good arguments, and maybe they leave and they They revert back because I don't think they're holding their position because of arguments. I think they're holding their positions because that's the desired position that they want to hold, that they think is the position they're supposed to hold, that their friends are holding, that the culture holds, that all the television shows support, but that being said, a number of people have, like, I've talked to them, like in 2021, and then in 2022, they come up and they're like, hey man, yeah, I was against you, but like I have thought about it a lot, and I'm no longer, I'm with you. Like that's happened.
So yeah, that's really reassuring that, like, especially the Christians are open to that, and their hearts are softened to, realizing that it is murder and it should be criminalized. And also that, you have situations where people, maybe you talked to them before and you plant that seed, kind of like your buddy you're talking about at the very beginning of the show, where later on it comes back and that seed grows into something else. And so I think that should be very reassuring to people.
Which interesting. Yeah, it's telling people to repent of bad ideas or bad actions or not following Christ, and them hearing, don't compromise with this. And then over time, sometimes incrementally, it's like planting a seed. Like, I mean, I think the Lord used, like, sometimes you plant a seed and it takes some time to grow. Now, there have been, the one thing I did want to say for sure about like converting people or like causing people to change their minds, if the most encouraging thing, and it blows my mind, I don't understand it. It's like not the world that I'm told exists out there. But if you go on our channel, like our YouTube channel, and you like look at the videos and you read the comments, like just the shorts and stuff, like tons. Like, I mean, I started like collecting them because I was like, ooh, these might be useful in like a PowerPoint sometime, like we're making a difference. But I was like, I stopped doing it. There's so many, there's tons of people that they're not like the ones that I'm talking to on the streets or other abolitionists are talking to, but they're getting it in the algorithm and they're watching it. And I've just got, and when I say tons, I mean like 50, screenshots of people saying, this channel changed my view on abortion. Like I've got a host of them that are sort of like, even great. They're like, I started watching this channel. I went from pro-choice to pro-life. Now I'm an abolitionist and I'm a Christian. And you're just like, praise God for YouTube. I mean, it's like YouTube can be,
that's awesome.
Or whenever you see those comments on TikTok, you're like, don't take TikTok away.
Yeah.
But it's, which we blew up on TikTok before we blew up on YouTube, because TikTok was like, oh, crazy Americans, just let them, if it's popular.
Yeah.
But you see where I lean on that. But but anyway, the comments on YouTube videos are shocking. One, you can have a video that has like, 1,000 comments and like 950 of them are positive. And you're like, that's not what I'm led to believe is the state of the world.
Yeah.
Now I know the algorithm is pushing our stuff to people but yeah, you still see lots of disagreement.
Well, and even beyond abortion,
lots of people changing.
Like I noticed, as it relates to like the Trump Biden type thing. Like I've been on like MSNBC's YouTube channel, and I'll go and like find some speech of Biden. Nothing about Trump, and like it's 90% are just ripping it apart. And like, this doesn't make sense. How did this person get that?
Actually,
we're not going to get into that.
Starts to make, but it starts making the conspiracies like seem, because you're like, it's like when you see those like here's the Trump rally and here's the Biden rally. This guy won, and you're like, the guy that's talking to the tree, like what?
It doesn't.
What's going on here?
But no,
it doesn't make sense. But
that's great. That's awesome, because I think, I don't know, maybe I don't know the full definition of this term, but the silent majority type thing. But it's kind of like, well, maybe I'll stop being so freaking silent.
Yes, and I do think, man, I'm not the biggest. Since you dropped the T-bomb, I'm not the biggest Trump fan in the world, but like his way of being sort of like, I think what people liked the most about him was that he was just sort of like blasting things and saying stuff that most people just think and want to say but don't say, and they're like, hey, this guy just said some crazy stuff, got my vote. But I think that at that same time, so you have the Trump thing happen, and then you have all the COVID-19 stuff happen, and like shutting down churches and all this kind of stuff. And I think lots of people are going like, oh, it's bad. Like, and then on the heels of all this, you've got all this sort of like gender not craziness. Like, it's like, we don't know what a woman is. And so all of that is having this effect that there is a huge number of Christians that are just kind of like, yeah, no, we're not having any more of this. And so, and also at the same time, you get sort of better freedom with, Twitter being acquired by Elon Musk and stuff like that. So I think that sort of bubble of thinking like, I'm a Christian and I need to keep my head down because everybody else isn't Christian and everybody else is going crazy and I don't want to challenge it because I'm going to be loud. I think that has been shattered in a significant way. And so Christians are walking around. It's got a weird phenomenon where it's the regular Christian guy or gal that's kind of like, I'm going to tell it like it is. But like maybe a lot of pastors that are older aren't like that yet. So you have all these Christians that are getting on YouTube and watching non-Christians like Shapiro and Peterson and Rogan. Like why are they watching Joe Rogan? He's not particularly Christian, but it's because he's telling truth about things or entertaining ideas that just get shut down. And he's like, no, let's talk about these. Let's not just laugh at them as though they're irrational. It's irrational just to censor things. And so I think something significant has happened in the last 5 years that, we won't fully understand, but a lot of people are getting it now. And in my own little world, in the abolitionist world, my version of that was looking at our comments and being like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I'm literally a middle-aged white male, like balding, like on a college campus with a sign that says abortion is murder. Forgiveness can be found in Christ alone. Like, and it's got 9 million likes or whatever. You're just like, this doesn't make sense. Like, how is this popular? Like, when was the guy holding the anti-abortion sign on the college campus liked? Like, when we were going and doing that in 2012, and it was like pariah. Yeah. Even on up to about 2016, it was still kind of like, I don't think that's the right way to do it. And now it's kind of like YouTube, sends you your little whatever, those silly plaque things, like, here, you reached 100,000. And you're just like, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. There are 100,000 people who agree with us. Lo and behold, there are.
Yeah, they need to speak up.
I know. Yeah. Then you have, not to rebuke, we all like the people who watch our videos, right? We don't want to push them too much, but they need to stop just watching and go doing it. It's like, man, if you could get 100,000 people to go do the work of an abolitionist in whatever way, shape, or form they're doing it, whether it's at an abortion clinic or at the Capitol or on the streets or like just around their dinner table, the world starts to change. And that number is, growing, hence Abolitionist Rising. But it still is, most people, even though we're saying positive things, most people are still quiet. Yeah. Frightened.
I was going to record a video today and I was going to entitle it Declaration of Truth. And basically the premise of the video is going to be just encouraging people to sign a Declaration of Truth, and not like a physical signature, not an online petition, like every opportunity you have, speak the truth and push back against untruth, like workplace, school, university, family, like, gathering, whatever, every single opportunity. Because the other side, for the past however many years, they have no reservations about that.
Oh yeah. And where can I lie?
Yes. Yeah. And so what, the silence, I'm not going to say silence is violence, but the silence of Christians and conservatives, other reasonable people, whatever you want to say, has, whenever someone says something and it's unchecked, then it's like, oh, I must have said the correct thing because no one pushed back. And then it just, you let that run out against 10, 20, 30 years.
No, 100%. And that reminds me of something that I think, I have to say, I think it's profound and kind of convicting at the same time. This is a rebuke for Christians. This is a rebuke of like our parents' generation, and maybe even ours. But like the reason you can watch Abolitionist Rising videos, you can watch 100 videos, and you see 100 dumb pro-life or pro-choice people walk into the conversation all smug, like they're going to just destroy me with their argument, and then one little response and they're like they don't know what to do, and I'm like, this other side thinks they're really smart and that their position's the intelligent, rational, scientific position, and it's the ludicrous, insane, self-refuting, non-scientific, philosophically defunct, like it's just awful, and like there's no reason or anything, but all those people, they think they're the smart ones. Now, they're delusional, but you know why they think they're so smart? Because they've been running around saying stupid things like my body, my choice. And for, 30, 40 years, people go, oh, I don't know how to answer that. You're like, it's not your freaking body. If it was just are you aborting yourself, or is there a body inside your body? Like no one was pushing back with just a simple fact. So these people actually have lived their lives thinking that they're saying smart stuff, and they only think they're saying smart stuff because no one ever told them, in a loving, kind way,
you're wrong.
Hey, brainless, like it just, like they are shocked, and sometimes like we have one I don't know what it'd be called, but it's like you can see them, like we're actually putting our stuff up. We're about to leave. We're at University of the Ohio State University. We're about to leave, and we're putting up our stuff, and like down across the way, like coming is this little troop of these two girls, and one's got a bullhorn, and they've got like their beta male with them, and they're gonna come, and they're gonna put me in my place. And so I'm just kind of like, well, this will be interesting, and run over there to talk to them. And, I'm not trying to toot my horn or anything, but like, it's like you've got these undergrads that they're like freshman or sophomore, and they're going to come just put this anti-abortion zealot in his place. And I'm like, where do you guys want to go? Like, what part of the conversation are we going to start at? And by the end of this, you'll be like, oh, holy smokes. I bet you that guy has like a master's degree in the history of science and an undergrad in philosophy and has kept on reading after school. We're dumb. Like that's like that's not to brag, but it's like I watch these kids being like super confident that they're going to just, and they come out and they say crazy things, and you're just like, calm down just a minute. Do you believe in human rights? And they're toast from the beginning because they say sometimes you'll get someone smart who's like, well, no, because they know where you're going, and you're like, okay, so what I'm doing out here isn't wrong, and they're, no, what you're doing is wrong. Why is that? Why is anything wrong? Yeah. And then they're like, I'm 21 years old and I've never thought about, I guess nothing's wrong. Okay, so what's your beef with me? Like you'll get some people like that. Yeah. Or you'll get, that's where you get someone and they're so intellectually honest. They'll be arguing like hardcore, like eugenics, population control, wheat go to the wall, like all this kind of stuff that you're like sitting there and you're like, man, this reminds me of that passage from Mein Kampf. And they're like, what? Well, I'm sorry, that's German. My struggle. What are you talking about? That book where that guy wrote down all the stuff you're saying back in the day, author of The Final Solution and leader of the Third Reich. Yeah. It rhymes with Hitler, starts with an H, and they're like,
have a lot in common.
Yeah, they're like, I'm not Hitler, and you're like, no, you are not Hitler, but everything you're saying lines up with Hitler against Christ, and they can't even fathom it. But you will get sometimes some people. I got one guy, and it was like it wasn't recorded, so it's like almost it didn't really happen. But conversation with the guy, and he's kind of like, yeah, Hitler kind of ruined it. I'm like, well, excuse me. It's like for eugenics. Like eugenics is good. It was a really good thing, but Hitler kind of ruined it. Like I'm just like, okay, how do I call the cops on this guy?
Oh my gosh.
Because he didn't go into the conversation but he argued for all this like hardcore eugenic stuff.
Wow.
Like racial cleansing of like Down syndrome. Like, I think that's what he was saying, something about like, yeah, we shouldn't kill Down syndrome people, but if we could eradicate them from the population, they would stop breeding. And you're like, you idiot. Down syndrome people aren't breeding all the Down syndrome, like normal non-Down syndrome people,
Country, I don't know if it was Switzerland. You might know this.
Yeah, a lot of where
they like they said they eradicated either with Down syndrome or reduced it, but it was like when you go and look, it's because they were aborting people.
Yeah, they just abort anyone who has Down syndrome, easily detectable in the womb.
Oh my gosh!
And they're not eradicating Down syndrome; they're eradicating Down syndrome people.
Yeah.
Yeah, humans with Down syndrome.
Yeah, because all that can stem back to even like Darwinism. The moment we are no longer humans and we're animals, that's like where all of this started to come from. And it's like, oh, we're just, was it Margaret Sanger? Wasn't she a eugenicist as well?
Oh yeah, hardcore. Yeah. Big Francis Galton eugenicist type. Like, I mean, all these people are, and they're unabashed. And the guy who told me that like Darwin, or that he's like, there's like a good form of eugenics, and Hitler kind of ruined it.
Oh my gosh.
When he's saying that, I think he's actually saying something that is weirdly, it's evil, but it's true. Like, there are lots of people that think that. They would never say that, but that is, they're like, man, yeah, Hitler,
It's like,
get rid of these human weeds. It's not like it wasn't like Hitler was on the cover of Time magazine, printed in America, because he was doing a great thing for his country, and it's not like when they were practicing eugenics all the way to the point of the Auschwitz, Dachau type thing. But in America, go back that same time period, look in the history books, and you will see that we're having build better family fairs and like churches and stuff. And there's like eugenic stuff, and it's all about like, perfecting the race and all this kind of stuff. And Hitler just was like, well, if this is actually true, let's do something about it.
Yeah.
H.G. Wells is like, hey, can you back that up just a little bit? Because it's basically the foundation of all my science fiction books.
We'll get
like,
there.
People
we'll
don't know
get
that,
there, but you're going too far. Too far, too fast.
It's too obvious that you're going after the Jews. Like, just don't. Hey, now your video's not even going on YouTube. My goodness.
So what books would you recommend on this topic for people to read?
Oh, see, I saw that question on your deal. There aren't a lot of books that are just purely on like abortion and how to fight. There are a couple of books that are by abolitionists. Man, C.R. Cowley is the author of a book on abolition that I believe is good. The Doctrine of Balaam. It has a really long subtitle. It sounds weird to remember, The Doctrine of Balaam. It's a great book. The problem is it's written before Roe v. Wade was overturned. There isn't like an abolitionist book on like how we approach this and fight this battle in the Dobbs era. So Roe v. Wade got repealed, but we still have abortion in every state. Like, what changed? Well, nothing really changed. Instead of like, saying no state has the right to criminalize abortion, now they say states have the right to do whatever they want with abortion, which is like saying states have the right to
have slavery.
Yeah, deprive human beings of the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So Dobbs is, people say, well, praise God for Dobbs. And I'm like, oh yeah, don't praise God for evil, bad things. It was just a scheme. But so there isn't a lot of like just purely fighting abortion books that I'm like, go read this. Because a lot of them have a bunch of that sort of, from hours ago in this video when we were talking about the pro-life stuff, a lot of them have that stuff.
Yeah.
And, but I would say there are some books that may not be fully about abortion that I think are significant and helpful. There's a lot of like anti-slavery stuff that I think is really helpful. And some of it's real short. I think there's a book called Immediate, Not Gradual Abolition by Elizabeth Hyrick. And, so it's she was British, 19th century, early 19th century, and she wrote a treatise. It's a pamphlet. It's just like 40 pages, Immediate, Not Gradual Abolition. And she's making the case for why you should pursue immediate abolition and not gradual abolition. And it's amazing. It's like one of these things you read and you're like, wow, this nails it. Yeah. All you really have to do is take the word slavery and turn it into abortion, and it works. And then there's No Compromise with Slavery by William Lloyd Garrison. Now, Garrison is kind of a controversial figure. He gets a lot of, he gets trashed on quite a bit unjustly, but very fiery figure in American history. But No Compromise with Slavery is just like a condensed 40 page type pamphlet. It's kind of like a sermon. It's like a speech. And it's the principles of abolition in contrast with the principles of moderate anti-slavery, just sustained argument. Like you would think it's called No Compromise with Slavery, and you think it's an abolitionist fighting slaveholders, but it's just a sustained argument against the pro-life movement of his day.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Very, very good work. And then modern books, since I mentioned Francis Schaeffer at the very beginning, I feel like people don't read enough Francis Schaeffer. And, there's little things here and there to quibble with him, but A Christian Manifesto by Francis Schaeffer. Short book, but I think it's the kind of unabashed, like, yes, let's be Christian in the world and biblical and tell the truth, because if we don't, people are going to die.
Yeah. And
our culture is going to be just awful and wicked, and these things must be declared in a biblical way. And so it's called the Christian Manifesto. It sounds kind of weird a bit, but it's a fantastic book, and it's short. You can get to it.
Awesome.
And then all these books. You should read all these books.
Got it. Like
that's just a picture.
Zoom in.
Yeah. That's just like one of those pictures of just book cover. Yeah. I don't know. People say I should make an annotated. There's tons of great books, but it's really hard to say, like, go read Holy Warriors by James Brewer Stewart. It's about the abolitionists and how hardcore Christian they were. But that author is a secular humanist who doesn't really understand them and is making fun of them the whole time. But it's factually true. They're a bunch of hardcore Bible-believing Christians that were trying to follow Christ to abolish slavery. And I think, those history books, if you can read a history book in the knowledge that a lot of the historian is kind of, selecting which things get quoted and which things don't, and you can kind of go to primary sources to see, like, okay, this is the quote that he used from that speech, but what does the whole speech say? And we live in a time of Google Books, and you can get so much. So
yeah. Do you believe that the needle is moving more towards abortion or abolition in this country?
I think among hardcore, like the kind of Christians that are like, nope, I'm going to be Christian. I don't care if it's not popular. I think the needle's moving to abolition significantly.
Good.
Now, there are lots of Christians who've never even heard about this. There are lots of people who are going to be watching your show that are going to be like, this is the first time they've heard about it. And the needle will move for them. There'll be some who watch it and they're like, that guy was nuts. Don't ever have him on the show again. But like, the needle will move, because this sounds a little bold, but if I believe so clearly that abolitionism is biblical, anyone who wants to have a biblical worldview who hears about it is going to go like, even if there's like, well, they'll have questions, it's an inevitability thing. The guy that I mentioned way earlier, the pastor that wrote the op-ed opposing the Bill of Abolition, who was the president of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma, came out against abolition in favor of this namby-pamby pro-life healthcare regulation bill, is now an abolitionist. And, why? Because he took an abolition. He finally, instead of opposing something he didn't understand, he took an abolition bill and a pro-life bill that had both been filed, and he put the Bible down on the desk between them, and he laid them down, and he said, I'm going to read this one, and I'm going to read this one. And whichever one's biblical, I'm going to go with that one.
Wow.
And the pro-life bill, fell to the side because it was filled with all this sort of compromise that you just don't usually, when they're just telling you like, hey, we're saving babies, they don't tell you about all this rubbish that's in that bill.
Yeah.
But yes, the needle, I think, is moving among Christians. Now, in the culture, it's hard to say. I want to say you have this weird thing going on in the United States right now where Republican leaders in the Republican Party are saying, stop freaking out about abortion. We're going to lose elections. And they say that because they poll, and they believe the polls are telling them, don't touch abortion if you want to win. And so they're saying things like, if you want to win, don't touch criminalizing abortion with a 10-foot pole. And so Donald Trump will actually tweet against being too radically anti-abortion, or whenever Alabama said, you know what, preborn human beings that are in cryogenic incarceration because of IVF, like they should be protected. And Donald Trump's like, IVF's good.
I saw that. Yeah.
Well, I think some of it is because they do have some polls, but I don't think their polls are reaching I don't think they're reaching a true sample. I think they're polling people who've previously voted, and the kind of people that they're polling, the people who voted for them before and all that kind of stuff. So they're getting they're not realizing that right now in our world, as controversial as opposing IVF is, no time in the history of the country has it been more okay to be like, oh, I think IVF should be totally done away. Like, I hate it. That's a perfectly legitimate thing that tons of people express without any fear or concern. You can go, you're going to have that awkward conversation with the people who have the IVF children. I'm not saying your children need to go away. I'm just saying that we need to stop messing around with a process to produce children in our likeness that also, kills so many of them,
Yeah.
And so, like, the willingness to talk about those things today is so much greater than even 5 years ago. So that needle, but again, we're talking about those Christians. I think in the pro-abortion world, I am astounded by how many atheists watch my videos and agree. And I don't have the category. I'm like, well, you have no reason to agree. But they're just kind of sometimes they're like, I know, but I think abortion is stupid and bad and wicked and gross. And I think it's just morally reckless and irresponsible. And you're like, well, why does that matter? But hey, I'm glad you're with us,
Yeah.
But I am seeing a lot of that doesn't seem to fit the expectations. So the needle is probably moving.
That's good.
I don't want to be too positive about it, but
That's awesome.
I have a very positive outlook on things, I think.
That's good. That's good. Man, this has been an awesome conversation. Seriously, This is way better than I thought it was going to be. Not to say that I was like, oh, this is going to suck. But it was like, I was like, this is going to be awesome. And this has been way better than that.
You're like, oh, we'll have this guy. Because I looked around at your channel and I'm like, yeah, it fits. It's going to be good. But, see, for all I'm just going to rat on myself. For all the viewers that are like, yeah, but you didn't talk to this guy about the main thing we're here for. I was kind of like, yeah, hey, let's don't go into that because I'm kind of an idiot. I'm not, I'm a gun owner, but I just, I'm not as engaged as I probably should be. And it's part of it is where I'm at.
The thing is with guns, I tell people, I'm not a gun channel. The guns are a means to an end. The defenders and disciples, we're not just defenders of ourselves, defenders of our born children and our wife or whatever, our family. We're defenders of all people. And so
you're just getting very consistent.
Exactly. So
across
it's
the board.
Some people will come, ask me about, what about this gun? What about this gun? What about this gun? I'm like, dude, I don't know. I use a Glock and that is it. I don't get all these fancy guns, these $2,000 handguns. It's like Glock works, and that's it. It's a means to an end.
I have friends that they treat it like baseball. It's like, when I was a kid, I had all these baseball cards and basketball cards and comic books and all this kind of stuff. And, when people would come over, I'd show them all my cool, here's my Michael Jordan rookie card, all that kind of stuff. I have friends that are like that, and I'm like, that's cool, man. This is good. It's just way out of my tax bracket. I'm glad you got 25 AR-15s. I can't afford one. Whenever the proverbial crap hits the fan, you sharing, but I think it's important, and especially whenever it's connected. Whenever it's not connected, like your channel, connecting it in a very coherent, strong, reasoned way is it's out there a lot of people. But sometimes whenever it's not connected, you're just kind of like, well, is this just sort of like a you're just into it, it's like some channels about cars, some channels about playing guitar, some channels about guns. But it's like the reason that guns are so important and not having them taken away is because of all the things that it's connected to. And
if anyone's watching and they think that all of this is nonsense, and they think that someone should have the right to kill someone because they're in a different state or location, then feel free. The unsubscribe button is somewhere in this location, so feel free to go ahead and tap that.
Unsubscribe now.
this has been fantastic. This is a great conversation.
That's good.
Real quick, where can people find you? And I mean, I'll link you guys below, but like, just kind of briefly go over that.
Yeah. So our website is just abolitionistrising.com. And that's just, we lay out our views and stuff there, and, you know, have a store and all that kind of stuff there. And then our YouTube channel. I don't know what it's Abolitionist Rising. Just search Abolitionist Rising.
Yeah.
Should
Google's
pop
pretty
up.
good at helping people find stuff. So
Yeah.
just type that in.
That's the name of the organization. If you can't find it, I don't know how you're alive. And so just that's how that is. But yeah, and you know, I'd encourage people to remember the algorithm, you know, to know that that's the way these things work. You like somebody's watching this video and they've watched tons of your videos and they've never subscribed.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking subscribe.
It's actually most people that watch my videos have never subscribed.
Yeah, you look at it and you're like, wait a second, this video's got 9 million views and I don't have 9 million subscribers. What's wrong? So I think it's important for people to you know, websites are good. You can learn stuff, but go to YouTube channels, watch stuff. If you want to see me be nice, like people are watching this video and like, that guy's just like brutally mean to all these pro-lifers that I am one. He's defending me. You want to see me be nice, you got to watch me talk to lost people.
Yeah.
On the Abolitionist Rising channel.
Definitely watch those videos, y'all, because it's amazing. And it'll inspire you to do the same, and also help you know how to respond to the common. I mean, and it's usually typically like 4 or 5 common arguments that get brought up, and help strengthen the ways to respond to those. Our
channel's gonna die because it's the same. I went out to a park and I was just kind of, and I just said I wasn't gonna be like, so what do you think about abortion? I was gonna be like, hey, do you know any good arguments for abortion? I'm like on 9 years and I haven't heard one yet. Do you have one? You know,
let's play a game. I will give you the pro-abortion arguments I know, and you give me one that I haven't brought up yet.
Yeah. And they're like, let's do it. There's just no, they wouldn't know what I was doing if I did that. But it is all the same stuff over and over again.
Yeah.
Thankfully, like in the providence of God, you know, I thought that. I was like, man, we're going to be like 50 videos deep. And people are like, well, I've seen how this guy answers that. Why would I keep watching? But for whatever reason, you know, the most interesting, crazy people always, it's like there's a magnet. They find me. And, you know, so if you want to hear the same thing over and over again with just different looking characters, but my children, your children aren't old enough to watch my channel. I would say that, you know, our channel.
My oldest is.
You're all okay.
Yeah.
She can take it in.
We get into debates. Like, she was eating breakfast the other morning and I came in there and I said, a woman should have the ability to choose to abort her child. Let's go. And like, I'll like be the pro and I'll have her debate me and just go kind of try to get her to, you know, strengthen those arguments. And another thing I'll tell people is like, I think it's important to be able to argue the other side as well as they can. Because I heard someone the other day mention, I know we're just now wrapping up, but let's
wrap it up. Let's just jump back into it.
The other day, someone was talking about IVF, and they mentioned like IVF. I was like, okay, well, what about IVF? And they're like, well, do you think it's okay to play God? And I'm like, well, actually, it's funny because you don't even seem to understand the pro-choice argument to be able to invoke IVF as an argument against a pro-lifer. It's because of all the embryos that are destroyed, not about playing God. Like playing God could be considered open heart surgery. Like
or the rhythm method. You know? Like I just
so it's funny.
That's not the primary problem with it. But
to hear when they don't even know their own argument or rebuttal. So it's like I try to get her and like to strengthen that and be able to argue their position as well as they can and steel man their argument. And then whenever you do debate someone, it'll be a walk in the park.
Yeah. No, and that's good. And I think, 11-year-old is definitely fine and ready. Like my kids have grown up around this stuff all the time, you know, so I just think sometimes someone came up to me like somewhere, I don't know where, like some kind of church type. And they're like, you have a YouTube channel? I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, my daughter watches YouTube all the time. And like, she comes walking up, she's like 4. And I'm like, well, unless she's like really accustomed to hearing the F-bomb, probably shouldn't watch my channel. And the lady was like, I was like, I don't use the F-bomb, but it's there's a lot of that. And you know, we don't pull it out.
Yeah.
It's bad for monetization and all that kind of stuff. But we'd have some videos that were just too many beeps. So,
well, for the people that obviously didn't see the beginning of the show, Russell has been up for like 30. I guess it's like 38 hours now. But
yeah, I hit my second win right before we started.
We're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah.
But I thank you again for coming on the show. And maybe we can do this again. I will have all the links below to your channel, so people go check that out.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching. But until next time, train to a higher standard.